and we run a small, purely English sparkling wine estate in Kent. We're organic. We make our wines vintage by vintage as an expression of each year. It's not like champagne. It's not like we declare a vintage. We make it every year as an expression of what we create here. Kirsty, I started on my own, having trained as a winemaker for 2.5 years at Plumpton. Then Kirsty, who also studied at Plumpton, but she came to me later on. She has worked in California, Argentina, all around the world. And we worked together. We're a really small estate. We just have 5 hectares. And it's really just the two of us who do everything here, from all the viticulture through to the winemaking to the whole thing.
Oh, great. Thank you for the introduction. Next is Kirsty.
Yeah, so well, Nick's done a very good introduction, but I joined Herbert Hall in 2013 just for work experience during that vintage. Went away, travelled a little bit with as a cellar hand, and then decided that I wanted to come back and work in the UK, and managed to convince Nick to give me a job, and I've been here ever since. So
well, she told me.
Okay, our next guest is Jess Kildetoft. He's a master sommelier from Denmark. Welcome, Jess. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you said, my name is Jess. I work as the wine director for a group of restaurants in Denmark, but we also have restaurants in Germany, and we used to have one in London called MASH. It's a big steakhouse. And yeah, I used to live in London for 7 years, and worked a few restaurants around the city, and now back in Denmark with my family, and yeah, quite interested to taste more English wines. So
great.
I'm happy to be here.
Great, likewise.
Yeah.
And our last guest is Roberto Zanca.
But not least. Yeah.
But not.
Yeah, but least.
Definitely not. He's group head sommelier of Hotel de Vin. Yeah, introduce yourself.
Yeah, as you said, I'm Roberto Zanca. Been with Hotel de Vin for about 10 years now. So I buy wine for the group for the 19 hotels that are spread all over the UK. Yeah.
Yeah, you know David well, huh?
I know David well. Yeah, we work together. So his background is Hotel de Vin as well. He's been with us for probably 4 years, I think. Yeah, that's where I know him from. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we first hit up with tasting. Everyone has a glass, I suppose.
Yes.
So there are not really any rules. Just tell me what you experience, what kind of aromas you smell, if it matches your expectations, etc., etc. And Nick and Kirsty, you can tell us about the wine, because it's a really special one from 2015. Can you explain how the wine is made, for instance?
Okay, so as I say, we grow organically. We have a really small estate. This wine is a blend of Chardonnay. It's a classic champagne blend. It's 40%. Well, not the percentages are necessarily classic, but the varietals are. So it's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier. It's a Chardonnay dominant wine. It's 40% Chardonnay, and I think you probably would recognise that sommeliers almost immediately. You know, you're getting that like honeysuckle, that slight honeydew melon notes coming from it, and there's some people would identify a slight sort of butteriness, which comes from the Chardonnay as well. But we're really small production. We make only about maybe 12 to 13,000 bottles of this particular wine a year. This has had, I think, 3 years on lees. So we're beginning to get light autolytic characteristics coming through. But our philosophy really is about expressing fruit that we grow here. we're single estate. Our history is farming in this area, and the site of the vineyard was one of the sites. My great grandfather Herbert Hall set it up at the end of the 19th century, and it was always not growing grapes but growing other things. But he always thought of that as the earliest ripening site on the farm that he built from this small beginning. So that small site is now the vineyard, and we produce amazing fruit there. So our philosophy is really about trying to express the fruit year on year. We're not really about blending from other vintages, lots of different wines. The champagne philosophy, generally, not always, but generally is much more concerned with, blending. That's their huge skills. They're bringing wine, grapes from all over the place, but actually what we're doing is trying to express the personality of the place.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I think this part, the southeast of England, is now perfect for making sparkling wines. We're getting the grapes coming in now regularly at the right acidity levels, the right sugar levels. We really have to do very little in the vineyard most years. Occasionally we have difficulties, but our main problem in the UK really is frost. I know it happens in many countries around the world, but that's those late frosts in May can be a killer for us. But that really is the big problem.
So you have a lot of sunshine through the year, or not?
Yeah, we seem to get a lot of sunshine, and we've had a great summer so far. We're now going into flowering, and the temperatures in the UK, as you know, in this week is set to be super hot, and this is a regular thing now. And I also, what often happens in the UK is we tend to get, people expect summer to come in July and August, and actually it's in September and October that we get some really, really lovely weather. And particularly that time in September is great for ripening the fruit.
Yeah. So Jess, what's your opinion of the aromas?
Well, I mean, so I, as I said to you before, I really haven't tasted an English sparkling wines for a few years, and my recollection of most of them was, quite acidic driven, very lean. Some of them obviously very different in style, but surprisingly a little bit richer here. I think the aromas are more towards sort of orchard fruit, probably being Chardonnay driven and all. But also like yellow apples. I get a little quince there, but I think the most notable about the wine is it's it has a very sort of lactic presence for me. Also get some like roasted rice, some buttermilk notes, some bee wax. It's a very textorial wine, and obviously I kind of like that.
Yeah,
I think you're right. That's a good assessment of the wine. I think the 15, we put it all through malolactic fermentation. We had I totally agree about a lot of the English wines that were being made, and we were sort of guilty of this for a year in 2011. It was too lean and too acidic. It was too much malic acid. It gives it that kind of tautness, and it's okay, but it's not the sort of wine you would want to have more than one glass of. So in 2012, which was a really terrible year, and some wine producers, famously United, decided not to make any wine. We did make wine, but we changed to introducing mallow to the process. And that was a big step for us to do, because it's less, in a way, purist. But that absolutely transformed, and it gives it that kind of softness that brings out the fruit, which we like, and gives it a richness and a weight, which is, and a mouthfeel, which makes it a much more attractive wine.
No, I agree. I think it's very sort of coating. It's really lush and mouth coating, and very textorial for me. And I think the last English wine I tasted was like an old vintage 9 timber Blanc de Blanc, which is also really good. I mean, really developed, but a good word is actually really developed. And I think this is probably a good style. I mean, to be honest, in terms of getting your wines to market, because it's definitely not champagne, and it's, you know, it's not English wines either. It's something in between. Yeah, and it tastes really well.
Sorry to interrupt you. The other thing we do, and you know, as a small producer, we can be quite agile like this.
Yeah.
We get the grapes in each year. We do our tests and we see what we've got. And once we've made, you know, once we know what we've got, we have our malolactic fermentation going on mother culture. But some years we might just do 20% mallow. Other years, like last year, we did. Was it 10 last year? 10% mallow. Another year it might be all mallow. So it's really trying to reach the same style, the same house style, but in different ways.
Basically just following the vintage, you know, whatever mother nature gives you. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the right approach for sure, because you are obviously, you know, here creating your own niche, so to speak, and you know, speaking about getting these things to market. I think that's the way you need to approach it, by being, you know, how do you say it, not adventurous, but you know, creating, you know, a special style, something that's
I slightly disagree that it's not adventurous, because I think it's really about like being able to move quickly. So one of the things we also, you talk about texture in the wine, and that actually comes from us using barrels as well. So we ferment some of the base wines in barrel, and we do lots of tests, and we blend to find something that we think is going to work. And we're not just thinking commercially, because again, you know, I'm not somebody who picks out, you know, there's a flavor of this fruit or that fruit. I believe totally in balance. I treat winemaking like food. It's the same. It's about, you know, the best chefs understand balance, and the best sommeliers and the best winemakers understand balance. And for me, that is really what it's about. And if you get the balance right between acidity, sweetness, body, texture, all those things, that is really what we're aiming for.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's something. I've tried many English sparkling wine before, but this is something completely different. I've never tried anything like that. It's gone to a richer side. It's more autolytic character that you can find. I'm not sure if the other houses actually leave the wine on the lees for this long, but I'm not sure. Probably the vintage is a bit too warm. So the list it would be interesting to see another vintage, to taste another vintage compared to this, because probably 15 was a bit too warm. Where I think probably the autolytic character maybe is showing a bit more in the ripeness of fruit. So is this the style that you're aiming at, or is just vintage is reflecting more the vintage characteristics?
I would say overall this is the style that we're aiming for. But as you will know, I mean, wine is alive. It's changing all the time. So, you know, the longer it's under cork, the more it will change. The longer it's on lees, it will change. It's, you know, it's an ever-moving thing. I mean, this is one of the issues as a small producer, that I have with this kind of mass-produced wine that is always trying to be like exactly the same all the time. And as a wine drinker, as a consumer, putting my consumer hat on, that doesn't really excite me. I would like to see change over time. I like to see, you know, an expression of different vintages. But I also think, you know, this is very typical of the style that we make. It has that sort of, it has good body, good texture, but that's all to do with it's not just the leaving it on lees. It's to do with the way we make it. It's how much mallow we do, how much oak we use. We use really old Burgundy barrels, which, you know, they don't give it flavor of oak, but they definitely change the texture of the wine.
It was 10% of the fruit that was barrel fermented for the 15?
Yeah, it's about 10%. Yeah, about 10%. Yeah.
And it was just the Chardonnay that was fermented.
Yeah, just for the Chardonnay.
In 15.
Yeah.
40%.
And does it add with a, you know, flavor? But is that due to exposure to oxygen and
so micro-oxygenation.
of course, yeah.
And then we do a little bit more lees aging in the barrel as well, so a bit more batonnage just to make it a bit more creamier as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best wines I've tried, English sparkling, because I tried a few, but they've got this sort of sharp acidity, which is really, I mean, I'm almost not pleasant. You know, it's maybe the barrel fermentation, that even if it's small amounts, could, I think, probably helps the wine. But it's sort of trying to calm those sort of acids down. That I think is a problem not only with sparkling wines, but with generally English wines. That the acidity is there, sometimes overpowers everything else.
Sure, and I think extended, however long you lees age for, if you start off with a wine that has that kind of linear acidity and not a weight of fruit, you're never going to make, lees aging isn't going to make it any better. But I mean, I've tasted wines, not just from the UK, but other countries where they've tried to use aging to sort of, somehow like lessen that acidity, and you end up with something that's a little bit acidic, but it's also oxidized rather than those kind of gentle autolytic notes that you should be going for.
So what are you looking for in your grapes when you pick? I mean, what's the kind of levels you want to be at, like acidic wise, sugar wise?
But normally, sort of anything under 14 grams per litre for our total acidity for our grapes. But that was the sort of levels that we were reaching when I first started in 2013. It's actually dropping on its own to about 11 grams, 10.5. And then what you normally find is you lose a little bit during cold stabilization as well.
Yeah, of course.
And then you lose a little bit more if you put it through mallow. So that sort of area, we're always looking for that 10.5% natural alcohol to make a baseline for sparkling. And again, it's about flavor profile as well. I think one of the luxuries of being a small estate is that you get to know it intrinsically. So you know your early ripening areas. So you can wander through and you can start waiting for that flavor development to come through, and you're able to taste and access it all in a day, and you know the areas that are coming through first, sort of like the little Chardonnay patch that you think might be starting to develop, and we can pick it, it can be picked for hours and pressed, because it's such a small site. So that's a luxury in a way, because you can wait.
Cool.
And how does the vintage of 2016 is developing? Is it more or less the same, or is every year different? Like Jess said, the temperature is rising here in Europe, especially in England, I guess, around September. How does that affect the wine?
So we've actually already moved on to our 2016 rosé. So we've released that a little bit earlier because we just like to have much more of that fresh fruit flavour coming through. 16 was quite similar to 15. We had that beautiful end of September, start of October, where the sun came out, and it just completely transformed the vintage. We used probably only about 40 to 50% malolactic fermentation in that year, and kept other things on their own, and just used that to balance out the acidity. I mean, I'm really excited about 16 vintage, actually. I think we won't be far.
It's already on the market, you said.
Not long now. It won't be long now.
Okay. It's already exciting.
We have to gorge some. We're doing some tests.
Okay, cool. Let me check if David has some questions from the audience. If not, we can proceed to the debate. And I don't see any questions yet.
So do you see this wine aging in the long run, or because you released it 2 years ago? Is that correct? Yeah.
So the things that we always do is we write the degorgement date on the back of every bottle. So you should be able to just turn it around and see when we released it. So
2020 says January.
Yeah, so it's only hands. 4 or 5 months under.
Oh yeah. So you see this month this wine aging in the long run, or is for drinking straight away as soon as released?
Yeah. I think it's done lees aging. I think it's reached its max with the lees. I would like to see how it develops a little bit more under cork. I think it's got another year or two under cork, definitely.
Okay, cool.
But what? Sorry, if I can just jump in. So what are you guys aiming for in terms of potential? I mean, because for me, this drinks really well now, and I don't doubt that it can age. But I mean, I think this is a good style to hit the market, because there's fruit aromas and there's secondary aromas, and you got the autolytic present there as well. But is that something that you always look for in your wine, or is this something that you developed recently?
I think since 2012, it's something that this is a style that we like, because we think it's we think we're making good wine, which is what we really want to do as winemakers. But as you will know, as sommeliers and people who sell wine, put into the market, you have to make something that people want to drink. That people, it's a pleasure. So again, another of our things when we're tasting in the winery, and it's always really hard to kind of disassociate yourself from being a winemaker to being a consumer. But you have to, I try to imagine that I'm going into a nice bar. I mean, it sounds a bit weird, but I'm in the winery, but I'm in the bar and I have a nice glass and I get at the right temperature and I taste it and I think, does this give me pleasure? Is this something that makes me happy to drink? Is it balanced? Is it a good wine? And that's really, it's sort of as simple as that. It's maybe that is more simple than the actual process, but that's really what we're looking for, because wine for us is really about people. It's about being sociable, bringing people together, and you want something that isn't just, I mean, it probably sounds crazy me saying this, but I can get quite bored with just people endlessly analyzing and analyzing and analyzing. What you really want is that sense that something is delicious. It's a bit like people endlessly taking pictures of their plate of food when they go out to eat a meal instead of just enjoying it and having a conversation with people. So that's sort of our, how we think about it. We try to make something in the best way we can, and we make different wines. I mean, we'll come on to this, but we have a cuvée coming up. Kirsty's done. It's we set up an award scheme for young winemakers when she was still a student, and she came up with this idea for just a pure barrel fermented Blanc de Blanc, which is going to come through. That's just 1,000 bottles. We have another wine, a barrel fermented Blanc de Blanc, just one barrel. It's going to be 500 bottles, but it's it's always determined by is it interesting to do this? Will it work when we're making the process, doing the process? But we always have to end up with wine that people want to drink, that gives them pleasure. It's not some like going on an assault course, when you're drinking wine. That you have to sort of prove that you've got this, that, and the other. You're trying to make people happy,
But I think also it makes tremendous sense to market something that's drinkable and and ready to go and delivers on all parameters when it hits the market. Because obviously there's plenty of wines around that you have to wait for. So,
but we do on the question. The question that you asked about, will this wine age? I mean, our most interesting experiment in that respect is we decided, for no other reason than it seemed like a good idea at the time, to do some half bottles. So in 2013 and 14, we made just 1,800 half bottles. And of course, as you'll know, half bottles mature more quickly anyway. So we still have 2013 half bottles, and people are drinking them. There are people who love like the more aged style of that you get with vintage champagnes or whatever, and so it can age, but it will change. It becomes like a different experience. You get less of those primary characteristics, and you move into the sort of secondary, more complex. And it's it just becomes different. It's like people always talk about, is it better or worse? Is it whatever? different wines, different ages, you know, when's it best to drink it. And it really is like so many things, a matter of people just stepping up and trusting their taste. You know, some people like something that's fresh and fruity. They might like a nice Prosecco. Other people like you know, different style of wine. It's really, but it's, all I would say is that it's well-made wine, and the production of sparkling wine is, it's just a set of stages that you go through, and you have to get every stage right. And if you do, then you produce something that will stand the test of time.
Yeah, and if you do, people will notice you and the wine, and they will enjoy it once they drink it. So yeah, cheers to that. Yeah, it's a lovely wine, I have to agree. So we're gonna move on to the topic, and I think it will also answer some of your questions about how do small producers compete with larger estates. You're a good example. You're a really small estate. You have a 5-hectare vineyard, and I'm sure you do a lot of work yourself along with Kirsty. Can you explain how it works at the Herbert Hall estate, and what's your point of view of competing against larger estates?
Okay, so we do, I mean, as the website, it makes it clear, because I think somebody commented on that, you know, we do pretty much everything. So we're, you know, we're from the vineyard to the wineries, doing sales, doing branding, you know, the whole thing. We do everything. We get help at harvest. Obviously, we need people picking the grapes for us. We get a bit of help now with pruning, and but that's it. We do it. So you can kind of survive. You're never going to become a millionaire doing this, but yeah.
We're happy, right?
but you can make a living and you can survive, and so that's what we do. I think the thing with, you know, I understand why people want to make sort of huge amounts of wine, you know, produce millions of bottles, send them all around the world. They all taste exactly the same, and that's brilliant, and high quality, all the rest of it. But it's really, you know, for both of us as winemakers, it's not very interesting. You know, for us, it's about making wine first and foremost. But there are ways that we can compete, and one of them is the fact that that is all we're interested in, really. And we don't have to sell a lot of wine, and because of what we do, and people who understand us and get it, they will pay a premium for what we do. Yeah. We don't sell it through supermarkets and have it discounted because it's a special promotion or whatever. We're kind of free and independent to just do what we want to do. And, you know, we want people to love it, but if they don't love it, and if it's not big enough, and if we don't, you know, if we're not in every supermarket, then that's fine. And if the price is too high for some people, that's fine. But it may be, you know, there's other people who would say, yeah, it's worth it. We love it. So I think in a sense, our smallness and our sticking to a kind of clear philosophy of what we do is important. I also think, you know, I mean, I did work in an advertising agency for a while, and I did get the fact that you've got to make, you know, first of all, you have to have a delicious product. So we go off and train to make wine and make the best we can. But our labeling and our branding, which now seems very similar to an awful lot of other people out there. But when we did this, this was picked up by GQ magazine, who wrote a big article about how English wine could become chic, okay? Because in the past it was like, you got to be kidding, you know, you're going to buy English wine, and it all looked awful. Some of it was sort of okay, but most of it was pretty terrible. And they chose our label as how the wines should be presented, you know. And we start off our first year, we got listed in the the Gavroche with the first vintage, and the sommelier there, he tasted the wine, he loved the wine, but he said, this will look good, you know, it has to look right for those kind of places. You can't make it, you know, really trashy. So we spend money on you know, we get the best quality printing, we get the best the labels, so we don't, you know, they don't come off in ice buckets and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just basic practical things. And the other thing that we've done is we always stick, we have this pale blue color that runs through all the branding that we do. And it's a simple thing to do. It just means that we use the same Pantone color over and over again. You know, we don't have a big budget. We don't have a budget at all for marketing. But if you, you know, at least if you remain consistent, people can recognize you, look smart. And for years, we were, you know, working with the Caprice Group. And I always thought, you know, we have to make a wine that when you go in there, it's the sort of thing you would expect to see on their shelves. You know, it's that sort of sensibility that you have about the visual impact that dogs can have.
Yeah,
so
it's really important, and it pays off in the end, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you also share your equipment with your neighbor Hershey, or yeah? Because
we love Hershey.
We do.
I love them.
I'm very, very good friends with the winemaker there. So
They have better equipment than us.
yeah. We don't really use their equipment. We don't really use their equipment, but if I accidentally forget to order a big yeast at harvest, then I'll pop over and borrow some. So they're very
fun, but they'll do.
they'll do the same. They'll come back and say, so
because you have to make choices, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But then, we get on very, very well with them, and I mean that we are different markets, we're different, you know, different places. So,
and what audience are you selling to? Restaurants only, or also through the web shop, for instance, or? So
we do. I mean, we started off for years. We didn't even have a sign outside the winery. We were supplying restaurants in London. So we were doing, you know, hotels. We did a lot with Fortnum & Mason for retail, Harrods, Lee and Sanderman, which was great. We have been in many, you know, just quite high-end restaurants, hotels, but, you know, generally the margins are less good with that. We also run into the issue because a lot of groups, they will do central buying. So the sommeliers in, you know, the restaurants or whatever, they have to pick only wines that are supplied by one or two or three particular agents. So we've had a number of cases where, you know, we've gone to a place and the sommelier wants to order it, but says, look, you have to do it through this, that, or the other agent. And the agents will then agree to take it, but the agents also want to sell it to everybody else. And it ends up in sort of off licenses and all these places all over the country, and we can't really control it anymore. And we don't have enough to do that. So, I mean, that whole kind of agent system can be a little bit tricky for us. But it, of course, it's better for us to work directly with restaurants because we build a, you know, great relationship with them. We can deliver just as quick as an agent. But, you know, they can, you know,
Is everybody okay? I think we have a connection.
That we can order from, and it's nice, as you say. More for the products, but you get the rebate. It's not something that I like to work like this, but to be honest, but that's how every single company that.
Another interesting point on that is, I mean, we have been in situations where there have been big producers of English sparkling wine who are so desperate to get listed that they will give their wine away, or you know, it's so super cheap, you know, that then, you know, the restaurant understandably will turn around and say, well, I'm really sorry, because they're giving the wine for free. So, you know, that's just something we can't compete with. So we just focus on quality and, you know, what we do, and really.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I want to ask you sort of, you know, I think there's been a big increase in vine planting, because I think it's 2018 was about 1.6 million vines planted, and I think 2019 you know, almost doubled that. It reached, I think, about 3 million vines planted in 2019. So this increase is like, it's incredible actually. So is this sort of increase affecting any small producer, you think, or going forwards in future, Willie?
I think it makes you want to stay small. I mean, you don't want to get into the middle ground and try and sort of expand. I mean, it is going to be a bit of a bloodbath out there, I think, because there are people who understand marketing, who have big, you know, financial muscle, who will, you know, to do whatever they can to establish their brands. And I think we inhabit a kind of niche. It's almost like, I wouldn't say being above brands, but it's like a separate category in a way. The big names, and absolutely, I'm sure they're doing the right thing. They want to get listed everywhere. They need massive visibility, so they kind of almost own the market. But that often gives us an opportunity as well, because I mean, I've been in, you know, many actually restaurants, quite high-end restaurants, where they just don't want to have the same thing that everybody else has got. They don't, of course,
that was the
brand, you know, and so so a lot of customers feel reassured because they see the name on the label. But actually, there's some really cool restaurants where they're looking for, you know, really interesting wines, and they say, I mean, one of the questions I've been asked probably 3 or 4 times is, are you listed in supermarkets? And if you are, they're not interested, because they want things that are going to be special for their customers. So there are opportunities, as well as the difficulty of fighting against that kind of power.
Yeah, it's very hard to do it when you get, you know, large, you know, big corporations, suppliers, and because you find the wines everywhere basically.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that's the answer to the question. The answer to the question is first and foremost, obviously, the quality of the product. And I think you're completely right. I think a way to succeed and make it true is definitely, if you want to build a brand, to the right restaurants. I think we've seen it so many times with great producers and other small producers that you know, it's made through the restaurants. So no, I totally agree to what you're saying, Nick. I think it's totally correct, and the only way to do it for a, you know, for a company of your size, it really just have to be all about the quality and the uniqueness of the product.
Yeah, I think there is so many companies. There's a few large companies, you know, wineries, many small ones, but I think you're doing something slightly different that differentiate from the others. So this is, you know, I think is good. It's a good thing to do, and you know, it's a niche market and target a special market that like this, you know, this style of wines. So and these are really gourmet wines, to be honest. So in the restaurant, I think it's got they've got a very good place.
So you're only doing the UK, I guess. I mean, that's the only market for you.
A little bit in a bit in Sweden. I think a little bit in Copenhagen as well.
Okay.
Sure, I think. But we have a guy who's a Swedish guy who took a load of wine out there to.
Okay. Do you know? Okay. I think in terms of well, I'm living in Copenhagen right now, and I haven't seen your wines. Obviously, are not everywhere, but I think you're starting to see a few producers over here now of English sparkling wines, which is quite interesting. I know Night Timber's here, and maybe one or two others, but I definitely see Night Timber's been around doing dinners and lunches and promotions and that. So it's they're definitely trying to break through, which is I think I think they're struggling, to be honest. I think it's not easy for such a small market, but so your wine's doing well in Sweden as well. So that's
I don't know what the sales are there, but it's on it's in the the Swedish system for the state.
Yeah, everything has to go through. Directly to restaurants or Systembolaget. So I don't know. I just think outside of UK, it's at least here. I think what you're really dealing with is the comprehension of like people who are focused on quality and on the quality of the wine and want to pay money for a great bottle of wine. I mean, you're really up against champagne, and I'm sure you know that, you heard that before. And I think obviously in the UK, you're probably past that threshold in some way that people consider British wine to be of the same quality or even better. And it's how do you say, it's common now that you would go and pick a British sparkling wine over a bottle of champagne or a bottle of Franciacorta or any other quality wine. But I think with every new market they still have to kind of pass that threshold. And I think it's really difficult, because in Denmark people are very traditional. Wines are picked on either region, grape varieties, or price. I mean, there's no real gray area. So I think it's very interesting, actually. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I would like to see the wine succeed. But do you have any?
You're absolutely right about that, and I think actually even in the UK, people within the wine industry kind of slightly exaggerate how what a presence English wine has against champagne. I mean, it definitely has changed, and English sparkling wine has got traction. There's been a huge amount of coverage from journalists, usually British journalists who've been very positive about it and everything. But I mean, it is a huge thing because champagne is a brand. I mean, there's it's been around for an awfully long time, and it's there are some unbelievably good wines. The reason we're making sparkling wine here is because we love champagne. It's not like it has to be one or the other, but there's a lot of work to do. And actually, it's really I was probably sounding a bit critical of I don't mean to be critical of the big producers. It's just a different thing. But if you have big producers with a big marketing budget who prepared to go out there across the world and market the products, they're doing a huge favor for other producers, small producers like us, because they're opening everybody's eyes.
Yeah, champagne is more expensive and it's not the same as champagne. I also have a question for Nick and Kirsty. Do you think the UK wine market is evolving into something completely new because of the COVID-19 and the Brexit? Or do you think you have this advantage to serve the British customer more than ever?
So for example, for us personally, during lockdown and during COVID and everything, we have been very, very well supported by the local market. Mm-hmm. We've been really well received, and I think a lot of people have that mentality during lockdown where they think, I want to support local businesses, I want to keep them going. So we've been really, really well received during that. I'm not quite sure. I'm not so sure about the Brexit. I don't know.
Yeah, I tend not to really go there with Brexit. So.
I'm sorry. But
but I certainly think with the lockdown, we had to completely change our model. We probably would have gone bust actually if we hadn't. All our business, well, not all of it, but an awful lot of it it's the hospitality. It's the on-trade and it's restaurants, you know, bars,
Part of
hotels,
the market.
primarily in London, which was, you know, massively hit. And so we basically had to do a bit of discounting, but doing it direct to people. Kirsty and I have been driving around delivering, but actually in doing that, we are meeting the people who drink our wine. And I have a close friend who's a painter, and one of the things she does when she sells a painting,
Really?
is that she really wants to know where it's going. Do you see what I mean? And it's the same with wine. You know, it's so nice to meet the people who are drinking it, and you can make a relationship with them and talk about it and all that. So, yeah. So I think that will be factored into the way we work in the future.
So you did evolve actually as a company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've actually almost come out stronger because we really had to pedal hard and, you know, and just get off our chairs and make sure that, you know, we're doing what we need to do to keep going. But at the same time, you know, we're now getting people who are hopefully going to start up July the 4th, everyone's saying, and, you know, we're getting the first orders coming in from some of the people who we would have traditionally supplied and, you know, in the restaurants and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, and I think it's we had to. It's given us some new ideas, if you like, some new ways to think.
There was definitely a lot of blue sky brainstorming.
Oh yes, like lying on the grass looking at the sky.
Did you also change your marketing because now you're now you're also hosting a webinar with us? It's also maybe a good opportunity to meet different customers and supplying other ways of marketing ways to supply for the customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it always goes back to the fundamental thing that we have to be, you know, who we are. We have a sort of freedom because we're so small and independent, and we can make quick decisions. You know, we're passionate about what we do, you know, the wine we make, making the best wine, and the relationships with the customers is a great thing for us. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. We go back to the point of, you know, how the sort of central buying and the agent system and everything. But actually, the restaurants that we have been in for years and years and years, where they're pretty high in these places, but, you know, they're often places where we have a relationship with the individuals who actually work there. You know, the guy who manages the restaurant, the sommelier who's been there for years, and, you know, we'll go and eat and, you know, drink with them, and, you know, we'll do whatever they want to make something happen. If they say, you know, we want to make a party for somebody's retirement to the restaurant, you know, we go, yeah, come on, let's just do it. And it's kind of old-fashioned, but it's really personal, and for our size, that's how we are, and it's how we live our lives. It's the whole thing is part of how, you know, we do everything. It filters into our whole philosophy of how we live, you know, how we work here, you know, how we run our days here, how we make wine, how we get to see people. It's if that makes sense to you, it probably sounds a bit vague, but
totally, because you want to build that relationship and keep it healthy, and that's why people came back for your wines.
Sure. And it's a natural thing. It's a huge pleasure to do it, you know, with people who get it.
At the stage, you don't maybe don't have the time or the ability to build that relationship because you have to run a big business. You know what I mean?
If you have to run a big business, you don't have time to do that. Exactly.
But maybe this is your advantage in a way.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it's also something that, you know, personally, I don't think either of us would want to do it any other way. You know, it has to be, if you're running a little business like this, you know, as I said, we're not going to, you know, we're not in it to become sort of multimillionaires, but we're in it to do something that is of, you know, true value, that's appreciated by people, that gives us satisfaction for making it, and hopefully we can make a living from it. It's kind of as simple as that, really.
Yeah. Okay. I also have a question from the audience. from Paul, and his question is, how important is the organic message for Nick and Kirsty?
What do you think?
So we, in 2000, up until 2014, we had the whole winery. We were actually making all organic wine, and we were able to sell it under an organic label. We actually only grow organically now, and purely, like, we haven't changed anything other than the sugar that we were using. So that's why we've declassified ourselves from an organic wine to just grow organically. For me, it's actually one of the reasons I joined Herbert Hall. When I came in 2013, it was quite a high disease pressure year, and we're only allowed to use copper and sulfur here, so we've got kind of minimal tools to fight powdery and downery mildew. But when I came in 2013, I'd been to a few other wineries, and the disease pressure was quite high. When I came here, it was actually a lot more reduced, and I was really intrigued as to why and what happened. And you know, it was obviously you'd got the sprays on at the right time, but I do feel like they've got this they've got their own like ability to fight diseases on their own. You know, you're letting them express themselves. So that's one of the reasons why I joined. It was I found that really interesting to work alongside the grapes in 2013. But it's also sort of, we have a lower yield, so being organic, so we have a much lower yield, but actually it means that, again, in years like 2012, where the sun wasn't very hot, like, you know, we didn't have very many warm days, and even sort of like 2017, where it was a bit cooler, we were able to ripen things quite nicely, because we're not ripening, you know, huge tonnage per acre. We're much more reduced. So naturally, we're able to get to much more expressive grapes with much more natural sugar levels and alcohol levels than I think if we were to grow commercially. I don't know.
Yeah, the other thing I would say, that's absolutely right, and also that, you know, we have quite a light canopy. We're not putting lots of we don't put fertilizer on. You know, we chop back, we put compost and, you know, chop back vines and things, but we keep a very light canopy. So a lot of the disease management is done by just allowing the air to move through the canopy. So one of the issues in England, I've seen it particularly in Cornwall, where, you know, it rains all the time, and, you know, everything's really lush. You get these heavy canopies, and it looks great, but, you know, they're just like little breeding grounds for disease. So it's right. I think you don't really need to be, you know, putting loads of, you know, chemicals all over everything. I think it's a bit like, you know, taking too many drugs or something. You know, if you have too many drugs, they all start to, you know, bombard, and they mess up your system. I mean, like, not recreational.
This is did wonder where you were going.
I mean, you know, if you know what I mean. If you're sick and you see people, they take all these cocktails of drugs to make them better, and they end up in a total mess. They're worse off than they were before. So I think there's something, you know, there's a very interesting. I'm going to say this now, because there's a Japanese writer who writes about natural farming, and now his name's gone from my head, but he was kind of fascinating because he's so extreme. It's almost like you shouldn't do anything at all, but you have to do a little bit. You have to keep the mildew out, but pretty much, you know, minimal intervention in the vineyard and keeping everything clean, keeping the canopies light. You can really, you know, produce gorgeous fruit, not high yield, but you can make amazing fruit by doing that and keep disease low.
That's good.
What's the yields again, sir?
Sorry?
What's the yields?
Some of our best years we've done up to 2 tons per acre, so we're not high at all. I think up until sort of like 2018 we were below that, so yeah, about 2 tons per acre.
Really low compared to Champagne, wasn't it?
And really low compared to a lot of people in the UK as well, you know.
Okay. And Jess and Roberto, how are the customers in your restaurant? Are they asking a lot for organic wines, or is it just a trend? Or can you explain what's happening in this day of age? Because I know a lot of people of my age want quality over quantity. Do you experience the same?
Yeah, I think it's the same, but I apologize.
You go ahead, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Who goes first?
Who goes
But I
first?
can go first anyway.
You
So
go first. That's okay.
I don't think don't have any a lot of requests for organic wines, to be honest. However,
Yeah.
I have to say that it's increasing. So we probably need to put like, especially for vegetarian as well, because there's a sort of trend now that everybody wants to be a vegetarian. So I don't know why they do it, just probably because they want to be different or something, but they're trying to look for vegetarian wines. So probably we need to change our so printing and put you know, the indication of vegetarian or organic probably in there. But I have to say it's very small and it's really minimum. No, I don't think it reaches 1%. To be honest. For really quantity and quality, I think I mean the customer pay a lot of money for, because for a bottle of wine. So I mean, we know what is the how much we charge for a bottle of wine, and buy or whatever, and I mean the percentage that we get is cost of sales, and it's pretty high. Well, cost of sales is low, but we get a lot of money of when we sell a bottle. So if you sell a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc, for instance, we pay very little and we charge a lot for it because it sells. So you can charge whatever amounts you want. So and not always is quality. So it's a bit mixed, to be honest. There is some customers that want, of course, quality. Some customers that want quantity, especially they want quality, but of things that are very well known, such as Sauvignon Blanc and Malbec, for instance. They don't really want to adventure, for something slightly different, unless it's something different. It's a hand sold by sommelier, and then it's different. I mean, it's very difficult. It's not easy to hand sell because people go to the restaurant and want, if you carry your watch on the left hand side, you don't want to start carrying on your right hand side. Just they want to try something different. So they comfortable with what they buy at supermarkets, and what you get at supermarkets. What they like, Sauvignon Blanc and Malbec. That's what they know as well. Of course, the French wines they got very well, like Sancerre and Chablis. But if you try to sell something slightly different, it's probably much different in London, because people, I'm not sure, people travel more, but more adventurous, definitely. Probably there's better restaurants and but yeah, it's completely different things in London. But outside London, it's very hard to sell the great variety and the wines from different regions, or the Jura, or I don't know, you name it. And so yeah, but definitely yeah. So I'm not you, Jeff, in Denmark, but
yeah, Jess.
Is there? Just repeat the question. Sorry. I mean, if people are looking for organic wines.
Yeah, people are asking for organic wines in the restaurant.
Well, I mean, I think people are super aware nowadays of what they want to drink. I mean, not everybody, but my generation, the younger generation in Denmark, they're super aware. I mean, they're really into the ethics of things. And I mean, I don't think per se they are asking about if it's organic or biodynamic or whatever, but I mean, they're really interested in the story, the place, the origin, and especially, I mean, how this wine is made, how the grapes are treated. And I think it's to do with many things, but I mean, I think it's not fashionable, but I think it's very common now in Denmark that people drink organic wines, and they want to drink organic wines in the same way they eat organic food. I mean, they want to, even though it's sometimes a little bit misleading, they don't want wines that's been sprayed with pesticides or use of fungicides, and in Denmark it's a very big thing, and it's thriving on the market. I mean, we don't label anything as being organic or biodynamic, but people will ask, and most of the time, then this is funny thing is actually is a lot of people are very aware. Not everybody, of course, but a lot of customers, I guess they're aware. I mean, they go for specific producers, you know, from specific regions, because they know it, they know what they stand for, and they know what they're gonna get. So I think it's a big deal, and for me it makes a lot of sense. But also I think it's only gonna get bigger. You know, that's maybe different.
Nick and Kirsty, the market is also changing, so people are asking for it. So you almost have to evolve like that, or do I see it completely wrong?
But I think it goes. Sorry to jump in, but I think especially with your wines and your product, I mean, it really goes hand in hand. I mean, your wines are like high quality, small quantity, hand-produced wines. I mean, of course they're going to be, you know, organic, I guess. I mean, for me, I don't see any other way. I mean, it's your baby. You're treating the grapes and the land with all, you know, the utmost respect. So in Denmark, that would kind of be, you know, that would be the perceived thing for sure. And I think in all Scandinavia. So maybe it's just the way people view it, but.
Nick, you don't say in the bottle if it's organic or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
Because there are two things to that. One is that I never really thought originally that I never associated champagne or sparkling wine with the kind of, it's more associated with pleasure and fun and those kind of values. So it wasn't an automatic thing to associate it with being organic. But the other point is, Kirsty said, because we make a special cuvee for Prince Charles, and he wanted an organic wine. So, so we had to have the winery certified as well as the vineyard. But the problem was we bought a load of organic sugar for our fermentations, and we had a problem with instability of the wine, obviously. And what happened was that it turned out that this sugar was so impure. You know, when it was analysed, we sent it off to Champagne to be analysed, and it had bits of, you know, mosquito wings and all kinds of stuff in it. So what we do, and I think it's much more in tune with the Danish Scandinavian ideas, we try to look after the soil. You know, we want to grow and make that soil healthy again, you know, after people have used chemicals all over the place in all these farms. So that's what our philosophy. We have a big bird program here, you know, in the hedgerows, reintroducing like songbirds and things. And so it's all about looking after the land. But the issue of calling yourself organic is really just a kind of labeling issue. And the only thing that we do that is not officially organic is that we use just pure sugar when we're doing our ferments. And the reason we use pure sugar, because it's just there to feed the yeast. It doesn't give any flavor or anything, but it's going to make the wine better if we use it. So it's about us trying to get the best possible wine, but farming and, you know, working in a way that is, you know, the best possible way to work. So that's what we do. So I'm not on a hobby horse for organics. I'm not there to campaign. I'm there to make the best wine and look after the countryside. This is where my family grew up, you know. I love this place. I want to make it, you know, live forever.
So on the vineyard is organic, but not on the winery, is that correct?
Yeah, the vineyard is certified and has been right from the beginning, certified organic. But you're not allowed to put on a label of wine that something is organic unless both the vineyard is and the winery is. But because we use, you know, just regular sugar, not, you know, organically certified sugar for quality reasons, that's the only reason. It's nothing to do with price or anything. It's to do purely with quality. We get a better product by using the sugar that we use for you know, dosage and secondary fermentations, because it's more stable. Simple as that.
And Prince Charles was okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Actually,
Pull down.
That was pretty cool, because we said we're not going to make it for you anymore because we can't. We're not going to certify. Okay.
That would be funny. That would be really funny.
I also have one more question from
He gets the philosophy.
I also one question from the audience again.
Okay.
This question is for Nick. We want to expand if there is more demand. It rhymes.
Expand for demand.
Yes.
We planted a couple more acres. That's like, what is that? Less than a hectare. An extra hectare of Chardonnay actually, because it grows well. But our mission is not to expand and get big. Our mission is to be small and make great wine and be free and independent.
Cool. Yeah, I understand. So, Roberto, what would you pair with this wine?
By the autolytic character, I would say probably some Doversol with some cream and a bit of truffle in there. That would probably be my choice.
Okay, and Jess?
No, I agree. I think it's definitely food wine for sure. And definitely some quality fish, turbot, creamy sauce. I mean, truffle's not a bad shout, but I also think now that it's getting a bit of temperature, that it's a great cheese wine. I mean, maybe like a lightly aged Comté, or like some of the really good lighter English cheeses would do really well. Because of the autolytic character. It's got almost like a little saltiness now that it has a bit more temperature in the glass. So I could see it working both ways.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Now I want to.
Sounds very good.
I'm hungry now.
That's it. I just want to say it's interesting you identified Comté and light, those English cheeses, because when we set up a little bar at the winery last summer, just for the weekends, and we thought that Comté was one of the best pairings with it. And we were also using Cornish Yard, which is quite a light, fresh cheese.
That's the one with the leaf around it, no?
Yeah, with the nettles around it, and that also worked really well.
Yeah, because I mean, cheese, they get this kind of like the saltiness and the nuttiness and the really deep flavors. I mean, I don't think it doesn't really reflect the wine that much, but it just has a little bit of that depth to it that I think is great. And with the richness and the body of the wine, I think it would be a good pairing. Yeah, actually, I would love to have some Comté in the fridge, but unfortunately we are all out. So
I think you don't have wine anymore. So because you started earlier, you finished the whole bottle already.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I got half a bottle left. I mean, obviously it's here to be enjoyed, so it would be a waste otherwise. Yeah.
I love the conversation we're having, but we're always near by the end, so we're going to wrap this thing up. I want to thank Kirsty and Nick for introducing their wonderful wines. I want to thank Jess and Roberto, who will be a guest on this panel. And Nick and Kirsty, can we order your wine on your website, or are there some?
Sure. Yeah. No. It's available via our website, herberthall.com, and we're doing. So it's easy and we can. And it's all fine. So
people are watching.
We sell it through. It's either you can get it through us. We sell it through the rosé, which you haven't tasted. We sell through Harrods. This wine we sell through Fortnum & Mason and Lee and Sanderman. They're the main distributors of it.
And Guest Wines.
Oh, and Guest Wines, of course. Guest Wines.
Of course, yes.
Who provided the wines today.
Yes. Who provided the wines today? Yeah.
And people from Europe can also order your wine, or just the UK?
It's just the UK, really. I mean, we have. It's kind of tricky, but it's really just the UK.
Maybe in the future, maybe in the near future. So for next week, we have our main guest, Corinne Seeley from Exton Park, along with David Bolton, he will be our host, and Michael Pelle, he's a master of wine, and Coralie Strong, she's the director of Every Glass Matters, will join us on the next edition. Next week, Monday, 7 p.m. EST time. So make sure you won't miss the next edition. And for now, I want to thank you all the guests, and I will stop this recording, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
Thank you. See you later. Bye.